And we are breaking into coverage. President Joe Biden is set to land here at CVG in just a few moments. We've been following the route of Air Force One, scheduled to land at 1 o'clock, and there he is right now. That is Air Force One touching down at CVG. President Biden with a group of people, including the traveling media on board, set to head up to Hamilton to visit United Manufacturing, a big push for the president's economic plan going forward. So we've been expecting the president to land. Here he is on time, just before 1 o'clock. He left the D.C. area just before 12 o'clock this afternoon. Now, we do know Mayor Aftab Pureval of Cincinnati is set to meet the president, but we've been told that he's going to be actually up in Hamilton when he gets there. We know a big stage has been set up for the president to make his speech. Now, a little bit about that. We're going to talk about his visit to Hamilton in just a moment, but we have a team of reporters stretching from CVG all the way to Hamilton. We're going to start with WLWT News 5's John London. John, how you doing, and what do you see out there?
Stephen, always a big deal when a president comes to town. A presidential visit to your city, it commands attention all by itself, whether it's Bill Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and now Joe Biden. So Air Force One landed here just a moment ago, and they're going to be turning around and coming back here on the tarmac. And then it's a day for rolling roadblocks and a call from the president for Congress to not block the Bipartisan Innovation Act. That is his big focus today. He wants that passed to help offset the supply chain shortage. He's not expected to make any remarks here whatsoever to the media. No one is here. None of the dignitaries that are usually here to greet a president are here today. This is a matter of him landing here and then being driven north, I'm told, on the loop, 275 to Hamilton, where he will tour, as has been mentioned, United Performance Medals and deliver remarks sometime, we think, around 3:30. He also has some meetings with various people ahead of that event. You'll hear a lot of technical terms today, like additive manufacturing, but it really boils down to this. The president wants to boost manufacturing and build on the 473,000 manufacturing jobs his administration says it has created since he took office. Air Force One, off in the distance here, is now taxiing towards us, where they will put the steps in place, and the president and his entourage will deplane, and then the motorcade will come around and they'll make their way towards Hamilton. The White House labels this a non-political trip, but of course, in a midterm election year, just about everything a president does is political. You mentioned Stephen Mayor Aftab Pureval and how he will meet with the president. We talked to the mayor yesterday. He's telling us that he wants to say that this part of the state needs more AM-forward additional manufacturing jobs. That additive manufacturing, you're going to hear that term a lot today. And he also wants to make sure that he emphasizes to him that those federal dollars to help build the new bridge across the Ohio River are important to this area as well. He wants to keep that on the president's radar. Air Force One now coming closer into view as President Joe Biden arrives here to launch what is called AM Forward. Additive manufacturing, it's essentially 3D printing technology, a way to circumvent the supply chain shortage, and he will be delivering remarks about that once he is up in Hamilton. He boarded Air Force One about 20 of 12 and just landed here a few moments ago. On board with him are a variety of staffers, including Press Secretary Jen Psaki. The Deputy Chief of Staff is on board as well, Bruce Reed. We're told the Director of National Economic Council, Brian Dees, is there too. There's other presidential assistants, including Megan Hayes, who is the Director of Message Planning. And the message plan today is a call to Congress. He's going to reiterate, pass that Bipartisan Innovation Act. It's going to be a recurring theme of his day today. Already there has been statements from the Republican Party here in Ohio and from the new Republican Senate nominee, J.D. Vance, who took time today to once again call the president's economic policies disastrous in terms of spending and energy, criticized him on the open borders as well. Vance saying it allows, his policies allow drugs to flow into the country. I would imagine the president will have many things to say today when he makes his remarks at that manufacturing plant in Hamilton. He'll be meeting with manufacturing leaders as well. Air Force One now just a football field away from us as it taxis into place.
John, thank you so much as we watch Air Force One taxi into place, waiting for President Joe Biden to deplane. Now, as I mentioned before, we do have a team of reporters covering the president's arrival and also where he will be in just about an hour's time. WLWT News 5 anchor Ashley Kirkland, she's actually up in Hamilton where the president will be going to make his speech. Let's head up to Hamilton now. Ashley, take us through what you're seeing there as we wait for President Biden to head that direction.
Yeah, so right now the room is filling up. We were able to get in around noon, get through security sweep. I'm going to pan right now, have my photographer pan to the press that you see. The last time the president came to town, it really was a different set of circumstances. He was touting more vaccines. It was last July. He was here for a town hall and also talking about his infrastructure bill. Well, now he is very much talking about moving American manufacturing forward. And the national press, as well as the local press, has still showed up for that because, as John said, anytime the president, no matter who it is in town, it's a big deal. Well, this morning, President Biden announced the Additive Manufacturing Forward program, and this is really the first stop since announcing that program, and it's a partnership with several of the large U.S. original manufacturers that we know, like GE and Siemens and Honeywell, and merging those with some of the smaller companies to make sure that they can get some of that 3D equipment that John was talking about, that additive manufacturing, to really move American manufacturing into this century, the 21st century, and get us ahead of countries like China and relying on those countries for most of our manufacturing. And that is what the Innovation Act is also that the president will be talking about. Now, John talked about the 473,000 jobs that the president will talk about, no doubt, that he's added in his presidency. Another number that we want to pay attention to that we're going to hear is that $250 billion. That's how much this Innovation Act is going to cost that he is asking Congress to pass. And so right now we are waiting for the president's arrival. You know how it goes. We wait for the president because he is the president of the United States right now. People are just getting settled. We see a lot of business leaders here in the community. If we could pan forward a little bit, we see some of our local officials. I saw Hamilton County Commissioner Stephanie Summerot-Dumas a little earlier, and as you said, Cincinnati Mayor Aftab Purabal will also be in attendance. No word yet on who or if the president will tour the entire facility here at UPM, but we will get those updates as it comes closer to his arrival here. Stephen?
Yeah, Ashley, you mentioned there's a lot of people, Aftab Purabal, other people that are planning to meet the president. But, what's the buzz in the room? I mean, the president is coming to Hamilton. We know schools, Fairfield City Schools, they're closed for the day. We know traffic's going to be stopped. What's the feeling in the room knowing that the president is heading that direction? And we're actually watching some of the people who traveled with the president step off the plane right now.
Well, as John said, the White House said yesterday this was not a political visit, but in this time, in the election season that we're in and trying to get these bills passed, it is political, but everyone here, no matter the affiliation, seems to be excited. It's always an exciting time when the president comes to town, whether that's excitement of travel or traffic or if you are in the president's party. So right now, people are just anticipating the president's arrival. I did speak to the commissioner, the Hamilton County Commissioner. She was very excited to be here today and talked about meeting the president. So right now, we're just getting a buzz of excitement. And also, Excitement about the possibility of some of this money coming to our area to help build up manufacturing in Southwest Ohio, which at one point was a leader in America in manufacturing. Stephen?
Ashley, thank you so much. We are watching the back of the plane deplane. Looks like a lot of the traveling media with the president stepping off, because the president will come off the front here momentarily. We have WLWT News 5's John London back at CVG watching the plane everybody deplane the plane. John, we see the front steps heading up there, and I know there's got to be some significance here that the president will be traveling across the Brent Spence, which we've all been talking about for a long time, getting that new plane, or getting that new bridge.
You know, my understanding, Stephen, is that the motorcade will go on the loop 275 to get the president to Hamilton. He has meetings with people, and he will not be, from what I've been told, crossing the Brent Spence Bridge. Don't hold me to that, but that's what the word is here at the airport. You mentioned the traveling press. It's always worth noting how many people travel with the president on these kinds of visits. Just a ton of folks, a ton of his staff, and then, of course, national media that travels with him on trips like this anywhere he goes, really. The limos are getting in place now, and we should be seeing the president here in just a moment. He comes in to Cincinnati here just a couple of days after the primary, and at a time, pretty much a difficult time for him in terms of the issues that are out there with gas prices rising the way they are, home prices going through the roof, highest inflation in 40 years. President Biden's job approval rating has fluctuated anywhere between 35 and 42% this year, which is low, although we should point out there have been past presidents in their midterms who have had similar low approval ratings, and then they shoot back up. So we don't know what will happen in this case. He does have some good news to travel with him today. There were reports about employers adding more than 400,000 jobs in April, not as high as in some previous months, but good nonetheless. There's the president deplaning now, waving to the media. We're about 50 yards away from him, behind some fencing and a stanchion. President Joe Biden with the salute, arriving here at the Greater Cincinnati Northern Kentucky International Airport. Again, as we've mentioned, there's no line of dignitaries here. It might be the first presidential visit that I can recall here at CVG where you don't have governors and mayors and senators, congresspeople, people from the party lined up to greet the president. But that was the arrangement they made today. He lands, gets into the motorcade, is driven to Hamilton for the remarks that he will deliver. He'll take a tour, meet with people first, meet with manufacturing leaders, meet with some other folks like Mayor Piraval, and then take a tour of that metals plant, and then deliver remarks, we are told, sometime in the neighborhood of 3:30, 3:45. And after that, our understanding is that he will come back, and of course we will be here. He will come back to CVG to depart sometime in that 5:30, 5:45, 6 o'clock range. This is the second visit in a year's time to Cincinnati for President Joe Biden. He was here last summer for a town hall at Mount St. Joe. This a very different kind of event. This will be very, very focused on manufacturing, high quality technology jobs, and as we've mentioned, calling upon Congress to approve the Bipartisan Innovation Act. There's a House version, a Senate version. What he wants is for those two bodies to come together and bring one bill to his desk so that it can be signed, and they can get that moving so that more manufacturing jobs, he says, will be created. So there you have the motorcade. There's, of course, emergency vehicles that will go with the motorcade. Police, the Sheriff's Department is here, etc. They're making their way towards, I'm told, 275 and then on to Hamilton. So Stephen, POTUS is here and on his way to a big afternoon up in Butler County.
Yeah, John, you're absolutely right. Always a big moment when the president comes to town. You see, he got off the plane, got into the Beast, and the massive convoy of cars and vehicles, and there's an ambulance, the traveling press, all lined up to take the president up to Hamilton, where, as we've been mentioning, if you've just been joining us, he is heading up to Hamilton to United Performance Metals. He just announced an initiative called AM Forward. It's about additive manufacturing, helping small and mid-sized companies with their manufacturing, in particular 3D printing. The goal, trying to keep a lot of the supply chain here in the United States. We've all seen supply chain issues over the last couple of years, especially with the pandemic. So right now, if you know anybody who is on 275 or in the Hamilton direction, let them know, or they might already know, the president is heading that direction, and traffic is going to be backing up very soon as they shut down exits to allow the president to get onto 275, to get to Hamilton, to get to United Performance Metals, where he is set to make a speech in front of a lot of the major players around Butler County, Hamilton County, and this area especially. We talk about the Brent Spence Bridge. John London just spoke about that, and getting the federal dollars to help get that rebuilt. So a lot happening here on WLWT over the next couple of hours. We have our team of reporters following the president, and of course that speech that the president makes, we're going to keep bringing it to you right here on WLWT as well. And of course, we're going to have the full wrap up at 4, all the way up until the president heads back down to CVG and takes off back for Washington, D.C. So thank you for watching us cut into programming right now. The arrival of President Joe Biden heading to Hamilton, back here in Cincinnati, Southwest Ohio, for the second time during his presidency. And of course, we're going to keep everything for you up to date right here on WLWT and WLWT.com. So we will check back in when the president gets to Hamilton and is set to make his speech.